Hello everybody, I'm KC and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk About. Today, let's talk about the Ducktales episode, The Outlaw Scrooge McDuck. Man, it feels good to talk about Ducktales again. Well, I'm not really known for covering every episode of a TV show on here. It's weird that I've only managed to talk about one episode of season 2 so far, and now the season is over. So yeah, I'd say I'm a bit behind, which is why some of you might be wondering why I'm covering this episode instead of one of the bigger ones. Well, mainly it's because I had a lot of fun with this episode, and I feel like it went a bit under the radar because of this weird thing Disney insisted on doing, where they aired episodes every weekday for about 2 weeks. A duck bomb, if you will. And frankly, after working on the 100th episode, and a big collab video, and keeping up with the Marvel movies, and planning videos for the rest of the year, and a whole bunch of stuff piled on top of each other in my day-to-day life, I really just need a softball review. But there's still quite a bit to go over, so let's take a look at The Outlaw Scrooge McDuck. After Louis gives up his latest get-rich-quick scheme for a very Louis reason, Scrooge tries to show him how hard work and determination gets results by telling him about his prospecting days in the Old West. Shenanigans ensue with old and new faces of all kinds in the search for wealth, success, and justice. I will be honest and say that this episode had quite a few things on the get KC to watch your episode more than is possibly needed checklist. First of all, I love the narrative device of characters telling stories to other characters, especially when it does that thing where the story is interrupted by questions or weird segues. It's just something I always find funny, I don't know why. And this is very evident in the fact that this storytelling device leads to the best joke in the episode.
Can we cut back on the old prospector slang a bit?
Get lost, dude. You're killing my vibe, man.
Nope, that's worse. Just go on.
I'm also a big fan of Old West episodes. Again, I don't know why, because outside of Back to the Future 3 and maybe City Slickers, I'm not a fan of Old West movies. But there's just something about the environment and the kind of adventures that usually take place in them that kind of get my blood pumping and wanting to get in on the action. And there's even a train heist and a chase on sort of horseback. This episode has got it all.
Has someone been peeking at my Christmas list?
Doctor.
Hey, it's not my fault the 10th Doctor didn't have an Old West adventure. I work with what I've got. While this episode doesn't have too many major story points in it, and on its own could be seen as filler, there's a surprising amount of stuff going on. There are a lot of characters and motivations crammed into this 22-minute outing, only one of which is from a main cast member. Luckily, this makes the episode feel more unique rather than crowded. And on top of that, even if Scrooge is the only main character focused on in this flashback, it's a different side of Scrooge. This looks back on Scrooge's early years digging for gold to make his fortune. Young, scruffy, barely has a lucky dime to his name Scrooge is kind of weird to see, but in a good way. It's just tough to imagine him as not being the old globe-trotting richest duck in the world after all this time, but it's still cool to see this time in his long life. Like when we saw some of Scrooge's past in the Curious Case Files of Agent 22, even though he's not as experienced or careful, he still has quite a bit of his innovation and determination, right down to straightening out a broken leg out of frustration. I'm not sure if that's resilient or stupid, but it's definitely Scrooge. But like any other adventure story, Scrooge runs into some colorful characters like...
Howdy, friend! Name is Marshall, but I happen to be Gumption's town sheriff. Well, my friends actually call me Deputy, which was my nickname before I got the promotion. Hard to stick a nickname.
I'm sorry, but I was not expecting that. I know this was one of the episodes teased at San Diego Comic-Con last year. I even pointed it out as an episode I was looking forward to. But when you see concept art, you don't really know what it's going to become. And in this case, I did not predict this being Fenton's quirky ancestor. I can't really explain it, but there's just something about Lin-Manuel Miranda doing this cowboy southern accent that just kills me. I laughed so much, I don't think I heard all of his dialogue until my third watch through.
A horse galloping at a steady 30 miles per hour could outpace the limited thrust of these rudimentary propulsion engines.
I could listen to this forever. But Sheriff Marshall Cabrera here is there to tell Scrooge that there's another familiar face in between him and the gold, but this time it's exactly who you think it is. Goldie O'Gilt. I haven't gotten to talk about Goldie yet in a video, but she has become one of my favorite side characters. I will admit that I have a soft spot for the flirting rivalry relationship trope. Two people who are equals and respect each other, but would never admit it being on opposite sides of right right and wrong. Goldie is Scrooge's opposite in that she manipulates and crosses lines to get what she wants, which is usually money or treasure. Or both. Buying out supplies just so Scrooge can't use it, pitting people against each other so she can get away behind their backs. She's a good foil for Scrooge, and judging from this episode, their relationship doesn't seem to have changed in the last 100 years. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? You make the call. I'm also a big Allison Janney fan, so I adore her voice work as Goldie. I actually didn't realize until recently just how much voice acting she's done, and this may be my favorite animated role of hers to date. And Allison Janney getting to sing as a distraction is a +1 in my book.
All eyes on me, this song's not done. Work faster, let's have fun!
So of course, Scrooge and Goldie are both after a major deposit of gold in the town of Gumption. Sounds like a good conflict for hijinks that could fill about 20 minutes and maybe an eye-opening revelation to wrap it all up in the end. But nope, there's more. Someone else is after the gold in this town. A rich duck by the name of John D. Rockerduck, a character who originated from the Uncle Scrooge comics and, like Feathery earlier this season, is apparently making his first appearance in animation. Now, I did notice that a lot of Rockerduck fans were not pleased with this episode. From what I could gather, some felt he was either misrepresented or a really watered down version of his comic counterpart. Personally, I know nothing about this character beyond this episode, so this didn't bother me at all. But if you are one of those people upset because you feel a character you love was misinterpreted, believe me, I sympathize. For me though, I found him to be an entertaining one-off antagonist, showing true greed and desire for financial gain with no regard for how many people he hurts on his path to getting it. Doing some pretty despicable things while still managing to get a laugh or two.
I studied Queensberry rules. Put up your dukes.
Marcus of Queensberry rules!
So now we have another constant yet favorite trope of mine, the alliance of convenience, as Scrooge and Goldie team up to get the gold back from Rockerduck with some very unexpected help from Gyro. Not one of Gyro's ancestors, not the revelation that Gyro is a Highlander, sadly, but the Gyro of the present who can apparently time travel now. In a tub? Wait, why a tub? Also, how did he wind up in jail? This is really out of nowhere, but I gotta admit, I got a real kick out of it. Usually time travel gone wrong is the main focus of the story, but here with Gyro, it's just a weird running gag, and I kind of respect it for that.
You? Nobody. Just your common crackpot outlaw, definitely not a brilliant scientist from the future accidentally stuck in the old West. I mean, current West.
And they do get points for having Gyro in the background a couple of times, both before his reveal in the story and as he departs. A detail I actually missed the first time I saw this. I feel like now is as good a time as any to elaborate more on Fenton's ancestor, Marshall Cabrera, since he decides to help Scrooge and the others get the gold back from Rockerduck after he realizes that Rockerduck only used the town to drain it of its gold and abandon it. Fenton seems to have inherited a lot from this guy, being virtuous and kind of rambly, making well-meaning mistakes with self-centered millionaires, and doing everything in his power to protect the innocent and stand up for what's right. And with Gyro's inventions now in the picture, Marshall finds a whole new way to save his town in the best way possible.
Stop in the name of the law!
Yes! 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 All of my yes! A steampunk gizmo duck! That is so freaking cool. Frankly, my only major complaint about this episode is that this lasts for like 20 seconds before the suit is completely destroyed. It's great fan service and I love everything about it, obviously, but I kind of wish we got to see this thing in a fight. But either way, this is just too amazing for words. And it's not like there isn't some action. Before the sheriff rolls in, Scrooge and Goldie confront Rockerduck's butler, who's guarding the gold as they try to reclaim it. It's a pretty cool fight scene. The setting and the moody lighting plus the score kind of reminds me of the fights in the Guy Ritchie Sherlock Holmes movies. But in the end, they don't get the gold back through a hardcore action scene, but through understanding and a small token of generosity. Scrooge appeals to Jeeves' better nature by being better than the butler's employer and spreading what good fortune he has to a fellow working-class man. Which is what separates Scrooge from someone like Rockerduck when he becomes a millionaire, and is the point of this story he's telling Louis. He made his fortune square and uses it to expand his ventures and spread it out to finance new opportunities. Despite the money bin, this version of Scrooge at least isn't a greedy hoarder and didn't take advantage of others to get where he is now, or at least not intentionally or knowingly, and instead he finds business opportunities that will benefit him and the greater community in the long run. And this little run through gumption is possibly where he learned that. The climax is an excellent way of showing the kind of entrepreneur Scrooge will become. But since this is Louie we're talking about, he doesn't take away that hard work and innovation are the way to get ahead, but rather heard how good Goldie is at getting rich quick, so he asked her to show him how to do that. It's the Cutie Mark Crusaders all over again.
All good things come to those who wait. Well, I've waited long enough.
This won't cause any future problems, I'm sure. Well, overall, while Outlaw Scrooge McDuck might not be anything to write home about in the grand scheme of Season 2, it is a wildly entertaining episode that I could watch over and over again. The action and adventure is a ton of fun, it highlights multiple fan-favorite side characters in all sorts of interesting and unexpected ways, and displays what makes Scrooge such an interesting character in a new way that helps the episode keep relevance with the larger story and development of the series. I could see this one not being everyone's cup of tea, but it had a lot of fun, unique things to offer as far as I'm concerned, and I hope we get more exciting looks into what made Scrooge who he is today and the people he met along the way that shaped him. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.